Hello. Oh, it's on. Great. Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Jody Cavalier, and I'm the co-chair of the Low-Residency MFA program here at PNCA. Tonight we're celebrating the opening of Studio Rent Editions with the Center for Contemporary Art and Culture, an exhibition of David Horvitz's work, along with the start of the Low-Residency Intensive here. So we're bringing in students from all across the world to Portland for 8 weeks to study, to make, to engage with our artists. So we're really excited. And we're really excited to have David be our first visitor. So on your seat is a schedule of the other visitors. So if you want email reminders, there's a sign-up sheet on the back, so we can get your email and send you the weekly reminders as well. Tonight is also significant because we have partnered with Portland Community Media. So we're actually broadcasting with them this and some other lectures over the course of the summer. So we're making those available to the public, which is really exciting as well. And then tonight we have 2 introductions. So I'm going to hand it over to Mack McFarlane, who is the director of the Center for Contemporary Art and Culture, who's going to talk a little bit about the exhibition, and then we'll have a kind of more formal introduction from our second-year candidate, Harrison Creech. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jody. You could hardly call what I'm going to do right now as an introduction, but I appreciate the sentiment nonetheless. I'm Mack McFarlane. I'm the director of the Center for Contemporary Art and Culture, and I'm so excited, actually, to be working with David Horvitz. If you have a moment to peruse the publication by publication studio that's in the space that David is also going to be speaking about, you'll get a little bit of a backstory of how I came to know David through a fax machine, through an attempted robbery in Kassel, Germany, and then through just countless sort of mail interactions that we've had over the years. And when I say mail, I don't mean the gender, but I mean the sort of thing, the postal service. There's often a confusion about that, actually. So I mean, this is actually our 5th exhibition of a visiting faculty member for the Low-Res program. We started this when the Low-Res program began in, I believe, 2012. And so it's really great to have this sort of marker of 5 years be someone I'm so enthusiastic about as the artist of David Horvitz, whose practice is just, it's sort of uncategorizable in some ways. And I don't want to steal Harris's thunder, so I'm just going to just turn it over to him for the introduction. So thank you all for coming out.
Good evening. As Jody mentioned, I'm Harrison, and I'm a second-year candidate at the Low-Res MFA Visual Studies program. And as part of the program, they kind of couple you with a mentor-mentee kind of scenario. It's just very beneficial, and I have the privilege of introducing my mentor from this past spring, David Horvitz, and I've gleaned much from him, his work, and his practice. David is an artist who uses books, photography, performance art, and mail art as his primary mediums for his work. He also creates conceptual websites, online interventions, DIY instructional projects, and has even used Wikipedia as one of his creative platforms. Horvitz traverses large spaces while employing a series of actions and operations that critique the over-commercialization of art. And one aspect that I personally have enjoyed is his participatory element in his work that often involves collaboration with other artists. Horvitz's works are often ongoing or self-generating projects that shift between the internet and the printed page. Recent solo exhibitions include concurrent works at the Jan Mot, Brussels, the Dawid Radziszewski Gallery, Warsaw, Peter Amby, Copenhagen, Statements, Art Basel, Kunsthal Charlottenborg, Copenhagen, and Cert, Berlin. His work has been showed as the exhibition Visual Art International 2014, Glasgow International 2014, Lofoten International Art Festival 2013, MoMA, The Kitchen, and the New Museum. In New York, he has realized projects with Recess, Clocktower Gallery, Post at MoMA, Printed Matter, Rhizome, and Triple Canopy. Recent artist books include The Distance of a Day, Sad, Depressed People. He's received the Rema Hort Mann Grant in 2011 and was nominated for the Discovery Award at Les Rencontres d'Art in 2011. Excuse my pronunciation. In 2013, he founded the Porcino Gallery in Berlin, and this summer he will have the first solo exhibition at Blum Poe, Los Angeles. If you would just join me in welcoming David Horvitz.
It's on. Can you hear me? I'm just kidding. In 2010, I was living in Brooklyn. I had just received my MFA from Bard College, and I was trying to figure out a studio situation. I don't necessarily need a studio to make my work, but I've always felt it is important to have a designated place outside my home to go to. A silent place where I could sit and think, a place to drink tea and daydream, to develop ideas and leave those ideas there for the next day. Since I didn't have a full-time job, I couldn't see myself paying rent for a New York studio over a long period of time. And so I came up with an idea. I would make an edition of 10 artwork each month. Maybe it was a photograph turned into a postcard, or some photocopies, or a text work, or a laserjet print, a watercolor of a flower I stole while walking down the street in New York, or an envelope of sand from a California beach, maybe a rock from Death Valley, some bronze shavings from a sculpture being polished, messed up screen prints, a Polaroid of my hand touching Marcel Duchamp's grave in Rouen, France, 2 Polaroids of the sky taken 1 minute apart, or a Polaroid of the view of the Pacific Ocean from a cliffside in Humboldt County, California, at the exact same latitude line as my studio in Gowanus, Brooklyn. I had a rubber stamp made that read Studio Rent Edition. I stamped each edition and then dated, numbered, and signed them. I sold these for 1/10 of my studio rent. If I sold all 10, they would subsidize my rent for that month. If I only sold a few, they would still reduce the cost of my rent. I started this in September 2010 and still make them to this day. Most of the older editions are now sold out. I just wanted to read that in case you didn't read that, but you may have already read it. So in there is what I just read is the Studio Rent Edition project that I've been doing for the past 6 years, which I've never actually shown publicly. It's always been more of a private thing that I would email out to friends or maybe collectors I know who might be interested in buying them. So it's nice. Well, it's nice that it's the first time it's being shown is at a school, because it was like my way of trying to figure out how to support my artist practice in New York after I graduated. And like the first one is actually from the moment when I graduated until like today. So it's almost like a timeline from like post MFA till this moment right now in Portland. So I'm gonna start. This might be confusing. I'm gonna try to see if this works. So like I said, it's like this. I have all these notes, but I'm not gonna read them. There's this idea of this timeline. Obviously, there's like 50 or 60 works that are in a chronological order. Oh, if you didn't realize, you could follow from the beginning on the wires, and they're all in chronological order, going zigzag throughout the gallery. And so obviously that's like a timeline throughout my life of like where I might be, what I might be doing. But it's also a timeline that kind of goes in parallel with my artist practice. And so in this talk, what I wanted to do was to show some images on this screen of the Studio Rent editions, and then on here I'm going to talk about other works that might relate to those works. Because a lot of the times the Studio Rent editions were like fragments of other projects I was doing at the same time, maybe, like some random thing. Turn that back on. Are we back? Okay. Let's see if this works. Oh, no. Oh, look. All right. So this is the first one in September 2010. I'm just going to go through these. You've probably already seen these. That's a second studio run edition I did in 2010. This is another one. That's in the Yale Art Gallery. That's a Duchamp painting that I'm looking at, which at the time I used this image and put it onto the Yale Art Gallery's Wikipedia page. So if you went on their Wikipedia page, you would see that image until someone removed it for copyright infringement. That's me playing around at Christmas. Okay, here we go. So this image was made in January 2011. And it was made, this is the one that's described in the press release where I'm standing in Humboldt County at the exact same latitude line as my studio in Gowanus in Brooklyn. So basically, I had this idea if I was sitting in my studio in Brooklyn, and if I were to look west out the window, this is what I would see if I were to traverse 3,000 miles across the United States. But obviously, I didn't just go here to make that image. I probably would have if I had enough money. But I was doing another project at the same time, which I'll talk about in this screen. Does this make sense? All right. So at that time, I was doing a project called Public Access. Let's see. Oh, actually, I think my friend who left made this photograph, Mia Nolting. This is in Bodega Head in, is that Marin County? So it's right north of Tomales Bay, north of San Francisco. This is where Hitchcock filmed The Birds. And so it's like a typical photograph of a landscape with like this person who happens to be me standing in there looking at the ocean. And so I put this image onto the Bodega Head website, Wikipedia webpage as this kind of like, I guess you would say like a visual like metadata for this location. And then what I did was I went up the entire California coast and I made these images similar to Bodega Head and put them onto the Wikipedia pages for those beaches. So there's all of them. And the photographs are always pointed west. And I'm always looking out at sea because I want to be more of this anonymous figure who's like in the image looking out into the distance. So you can't really know, you wouldn't really know who I was. I was like, if you go on Wikipedia, it's made, all the images are like, it's like user generated images. So they're like random, some are professional, but a lot of them are just snapshots. So this is like, someone comes to this beach in, where is that? That's Point Lobos in California. And you might take a photograph and someone just happens to be standing there. So I wanted to be that kind of figure. And so all of these ended up onto Wikipedia. This is a lost coast. This is where I got stuck in the mud. So I went up basically from the Mexican-American border to Oregon, driving up the coast. This was for a project funded by SF Camera Work at the time. Oh, I had to put this in. This is when we got stuck in mud. And my friend, we were out of service, but my friend just kept calling 911 on her phone 48 times, even though we had no signal. She would maybe signal would come. We were actually saved by mushroom foragers the next morning. It was strange. Not that strange. So this is, so basically, I'm sure many people are familiar with Wikipedia, but I kind of see this metaphorically as this putting stuff online, making something public. You kind of like, it's this idea of like the seed sower or like the gardener. Like you plant a seed and then maybe something will grow, maybe something won't. So if we go back, so this is Pelican State Beach. And that's the image. It's a tiny, this is a tiny beach in the middle of nowhere. That's why it has such a tiny Wikipedia article. And then you see this. It's the same image. So, because Wikipedia is copyright free, so people will go on the Wikipedia and source images and use them for like their own website. or maybe even for like print media. So part of this project is, one, there's this interaction in like physical, the world, like going up the coast and going to these beaches. And then there's a second element of putting this stuff online into this public space online. And then there's also what might happen, and like who knows what will happen. Like I had no idea. I could never predict that like this person will use this image or this person will use this image. So like the image kind of like proliferates and moves around. Oh, I forgot to mention the project is called Public Access because one, California's coast is all publicly accessible, and also, like I said, Wikipedia is a kind of digital commons. So in a sense, they're both like these public spaces. Uh-oh. There we go. I'll just make sure I keep doing that. Supposedly public spaces, as you'll see. That's actually the Mexican-American border. You can just sneak in. What? Oh, I think I have a laser. So right here, there's a border patrol car. So if you were to sneak back in, he would probably shoot you. I cropped it out because it didn't look good in the photo. So this is Borderfield State Park. This is Silver Strand State Beach, which is in San Diego. So take a good look at both of these images and like kind of like memorize all the grains of sand, the water. And so a few weeks after I did the project, maybe a month after, I went on to Wikipedia and I saw these two images. And these had replaced my images. So someone had realized that I was, or they didn't realize I was, they realized somebody was putting all these photographs onto these beaches in California on Wikipedia with what seemed like the same person in it. And they decided to crop out that person and then re-upload these images. So these images replaced these previous two images. And in a sense, I kind of like this because it was like, that's what happens when you like make something public. You kind of remove your authority or your control over it. And this person actually literally removed me from my project. He's like, get out. But it's like horrible crops. It's like, that's like a stupid, like the top one, it's like, that doesn't even say anything as a photograph. And so all of this stuff started happening, such as, like in the background of Wikipedia, all of these editors were getting mad. And this one guy you could read this, but he basically proposes to ban me. So after I did this project, with simple, I guess it's simple like online search, you could figure out that I made these images. So if you're a Wikipedia editor and you see these images, you could like do like a backward search and figure out it was me because I was also showing them in galleries, so then they could kind of connect it. So this person connected it and then proposed to ban me, and then it was voted, and this was 2014. I got officially banned from Wikipedia. So this is like the public space. I mean, and like I have a bunch of artist books. Publication Studio makes them, and so they have like these conversations that happen between these Wikipedia editors about like basically discussing the legitimacy of the image on Wikipedia. Like basically the argument was that like this guy is doing an art project. We need to find a rule that he broke because we don't want him on here. And then the rule they found was like I think I was making a point or something. It was like you're not allowed to make a point. So this guy proposed, and then I also don't know, like maybe only 20 people voted. You know, there could be 10,000 people, editors, and maybe only 15 people care about this discussion. And so he's like, oh, enough people voted, David's banned. And then once I was banned, all my images were slowly removed that they could find. They can't find everything. Okay, so now we're going back to the editions. Does this make sense? So now we're still in like 2010 or 11. These are two Polaroids of the sky shot 1 minute apart. I don't know if you could see how they're different, if you can tell. I gotta go here. Let me see if I can do this. So this is my hand on Duchamp's grave. So where did I put it? So as I said, I was banned from Wikipedia, and this image was removed. However, an hour ago, I put it back up. So if you go here, and maybe that will stay for good. Maybe they forgot about me, or maybe it'll get deleted. I don't know. And it's also like part of the image. I mean, part of the same of like the public access where like I'm anonymous. Here I'm like kind of in the periphery of the image and like not like obscuring the subject. It's like standing in like the shadows. You're just like this presence that just happens to be like somewhere in there. And so maybe you'll be online and you'll come across my hand. Maybe you'll know it's my hand, or maybe you won't even know it's my hand. And maybe many of you have even seen my hand before. All right, where did it go? I don't know why my camera's on. All right, here's, so now we're back over here. So here's an edition, I don't even know, where are we? We're in probably 2011. This is where I wanted to take a watermelon to the ocean so we could see the ocean before I ate it. And a lot of these are like really like stupid, like I would never make that as an artwork that I would put in a gallery because it's like, I mean, I just did. Oh. Because it's like, they're kind of like, they're dumb. I mean, I know they're dumb, but they're like funny. And then it's like, also this edition series has become like an excuse to like do all these things, which I might not normally do, and like turn them into an artwork of whether it could be just like an everyday like action or just like some random thing. But so it becomes this like, there's like this momentum. It's like, oh, okay, it's a new month. I gotta do something. Oh, I'm gonna try to give Chris Marker this like Japanese cat. And this is the first time my cat was in an artwork of mine. And later you'll see that he's in many more. Tomatoes, like so randomly, like I was like, oh, these tomatoes look really cool. So I just photographed them, and that was the edition for that month. Oh wow, bad. I tried to make a drawing. I didn't go to art school. Some roses. Sorry. Oh, I was mailing 1-cent checks to pay off my student debt. And so this edition, the person who buys it would get a photograph and then like one of the what do you call it? The carbon copy of the check. You could read about that one. You could read about that one. We're trying to get to, come on. Do not cross while stargazing. That's the Aurora Borealis in Yukon, Canada. All right. Here we are. I'm in Hong Kong. So now we can see I'm in Hong Kong. So similar to the public access, which was in California, which related to the public beaches of California and the publicness of Wikipedia, I also, if I happen to be, there was like an art fair in Hong Kong that I was at. So I was like, I'm going to make some more and just do some, an extended public access series in Hong Kong. So I did one, Ping Chao. I want to do at the furthest eastern point and the furthest western point. One at sunrise, which is here at the eastern point, and then one at sunset, which is here, the western point. After, all right, wait a minute. Okay. So basically, I'm at the westernmost point of Hong Kong, and I make this image at sunset. The sun comes down. It gets really dark. It's just like a remote beach. It took me like 3 hours to like, I was like crawling through these like overgrown trails. And I like, there was no way I was gonna do that in the dark. So I attempted to go around the beach and the cliffs to get back to this village I was staying at. Within like an hour, I was stuck on the bottom of a rock. And I had obviously I had my camera and my tripod because I was making these images. And I realized I could try to signal for help using my camera's flash and my timer and my tripod. And also my bag that was filled with rocks, holding my tripod safe. But I was like literally on this tiny little rock, like at the bottom of a cliff. I was safe, but it was, I didn't want to spend the night on a rock. So I ended up shooting these photographs Well, I mean, they weren't intentionally photographs. I was activating the flash. I was illuminating my body so that any boats passing by might see me. And then this happened. This was like 10 minutes later. I was like stuck for like probably like 3 hours until I realized I could do this. And then I got rescued. But so something like this was a studio run edition, and then it turned into like an artwork. It turned into like a slideshow that I made. But it's like these kind of accidents that happen. Like this was like something I was making this other piece, and then this happened. But I wasn't even trying to make it work. I was just using my camera's flash. And then the next day I was like, oh look, I got all these pictures of me, and then I turned them into this like piece. So that's what this. So this studio run edition over there is this kind of story. And then it was kind of funny. They picked me up in this raft, and I jumped off the rock into the raft, and they were like, "You're very smart. We saw you out in the water," and like we were like, "What was that?" And then they were like, "Where do you want to go?" And I was like, "Take me to Tayo Pier," and they're like, "Okay," and then they dropped me off at the pier. All right, is this working? This is a bag of sand, or that. And this is you can read about that. All of this is, okay. So I was in the Catskills doing a residency. And I ended up just doing this for fun. I had made this artist book, Sad Depressed People, which is stock images that depict depression, mostly taken from Corbis and Getty, maybe some others. I make a lot of books, as you can see. I mean, we could talk about that later. And in the back of the book, I had all of the keywords and like the tags. And like everyone knows how tags work, right? It's like how you like tag an image. So if let's say you work for like a magazine and we need an image about depression. And then you look up depression, or maybe you look up desolate or despair or difficult or disappointment or discontented, dismal, displeased. So I kind of like, there's this like interesting thing that happens, like producing all this language about images. So whoever, because it could either have been the stock photographer who wrote his tags or her tags, or it could have been someone who's like working in the stock agency's office who was like, okay, we have this image like this. And thinking of like 30 ways to describe it so that someone might find it who is looking for that image. And then for fun, back in the Catskills, I made signs of some of my favorite tags, and I just put them around on highways. So I was looking away is somewhere in there. Looking away, looking down, loss. Wait, I'm like, no, which one am I on? So here's an example. And so that, we're going to come back to this book in a bit. So these are, this is like kind of like all jumbly and jumping. I hope that's okay. So this edition, which is October 2012, was 2 seeds that I collected from Zuccotti Park, where the Occupy Wall Street protest started. And I ended up, so I originally, I was like, okay, I did these honey locust trees in this square, and I collected them in the fall, and I sent them for this edition. But then I decided, someone asked me to make a book, and I had some extra seeds, so I made another artist book that was basically just a blank book that had 3 holes in it and seeds in them, and these were given out to people. And one of the books I kept in my studio, and I buried, and then I watered it with my Japanese sandals. And then the 3 trees started growing out of it. And then, because it was a book, obviously, it's still a book, even though it's in the ground, I called up the librarian at Bard College, CCS, at Bard's CCS Hessel Museum Library, and I was like, I want to donate a book to your library. However, the book's in the dirt. Do you want it? And she's like, yeah. And so she got approval, the librarian, to so it's still, the trees are still in, the book's still in there. And outside of Bard Library, also the Hessel Museum, is this honey locust tree. And it's the book in the ground. And I think it should be in the library's catalog, but you can't check it out. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you can. And that's still there. That doing something like this, it's like you start a tree from seed. Like, is it gonna die? Because like it could be like a winter in New York could just kill it, but it's still alive. So I'm like, I'm usually not very precious about my art, but like when it comes to like little trees, it's like, oh, it like stresses me out. And then these are rocks that were pulled from this hole. So here's like 11 rocks. And if we go forward in here, through Berlin, through dirt. Oh, I want to talk about that. Maybe I'll skip that. Airport security. So here's one of the rocks. It's actually probably this one. So that was one of the, and that's the one in the gallery. So that was the addition for that month, was like a giant rock. It's also really fun, because I mean a lot of this comes out of like mail art. So it's like I'm gonna go to the post office with a rock in an envelope, and be like, here you go. And so I mailed it in an envelope, but you could see how it arrives in this like weak hair package that the post office wrapped. It's actually in the library, in your library, in a vitrine. There's a piece that I mailed to them that has a stamp from the post office that says, "You owe us like $1.50." And then they made the library pay them. Like, it was like, all right, let's see where we go. Okay, perfect. This, if you can look closely, oh, maybe this works. Right here is dust. So this was an edition, that was this text that I wrote, where I was really mad at these curators and I tried to sue them. But that's a whole different story. Inside the envelope, I put a bunch of bronze shavings, and that edition came from this project, which is where I took this bell that used to ring the time. It was important that it rung the time at one point. And I took it to a German foundry. This is a French bell. I think it was made in 1740s. And then we smashed it and then melted it and made little bells of the same shape as the big bell. And I ended up making 47 bells, and that was just because that was how much metal there was. And so the bronze dust was from polishing this state of the bell into this. And so for this exhibition, there's 47 bells that are hung in this was at the New Museum, this was at the Brooklyn Museum, this is now in a gallery in Copenhagen in this image. They're hung in a space, and then on designated days, it's hard to hang things straight. We tried. I think it looks better not straight. So this is at the New Museum. People, volunteers or performers or whoever we can get, 47 of them, will meet at what's called local noon, which is when the sun is highest in the sky. It's traditionally when it would have been noon, as opposed to noon when your clock says 12, because that has to do with the relationship between like Greenwich. So originally, when there was such thing as local time, there was that was when noon was. So everywhere you go across the United States, you go across Europe, everyone's noon was actually at a different moment of the day. And so you meet at local noon on a certain day, and you ring together. I think I have. So you ring the time, 12 rings, together, and then you continue ringing as you leave the gallery or the museum. And so this idea, there's lots of different ideas, but it's thinking about, going back to the bell, you think about this bell as this kind of centralized time signal. And this idea of melting it down into smaller bells is kind of decentralizing it, and then kind of spreading it out through a city. So in a sense, the performance ends when the performer can't hear another bell. So they have gone somewhere, and they're no longer part of that the original bell, and they've like kind of spread. And there's also this nice idea of like carrying time in your hands, or of like making like your own time, as opposed to like the bell was something that would like it would subject everyone to this one singular uniform time, where here it's about like kind of like individual time, subjective time. That was a curator. It's always important for the curator to participate in the work that they curate. So it was called "Let Us Keep Our Own Noon," which was this slogan I found in this book I was reading about when time was standardized, and basically noon, what I just described, noon no longer meant when the sun was here. It was like when the clock said noon, and so there was like these I don't know if they're anarchists or whoever, but they were like against the standardizing of time, and they were like if we standardize, then we're gonna lose our own. We're gonna lose our noon, and we're gonna lose our own time. All right, let's keep going. Oh, I'll describe this. This edition, I'm waving at the sea, and it was the day I got back from Berlin. I left really early in the morning, and I couldn't say bye to my friends who I was staying with, so I just said bye when I got back to New York, and like waving in their direction, which will come up later. This idea of like distance and orientation. Some envelopes. Oh, here we go. So this is a green dot. It's the green ray from the sunset. No, I'm just kidding. This is a piece of sea glass. So that was one of the additions. And here is a piece of sea glass, too. They're not the same. And so this actually was also in the new museum with the bells. I was collecting sea glass on various beaches on my travels, or in New York or wherever. And I took these fragments to a glass blower, and we melted it down, and then we made these kind of new vessels from these fragments. So it started from these, it actually started from walking on the beach. All of my work starts from walking on the beach. That's my actual medium, beach walker. And then kind of, and it's almost like a reverse idea of the bells. The bells is taking this thing and kind of like disintegrating it. Here it's taking these pieces that are fragmented and putting them back together to form these whole shapes. And the reason why they're all like messed up looking, like with cracks, is because you can't, or not you can't, you can, I did it. You're not supposed to melt different kinds of glass together because they have different, what's called CO2, which is like basically the rates of expansion and contraction at different temperatures. So each of the different glasses have different chemistries. And so that's why when they come together, they crack. They look crazy. These could be like screensavers. Instead of breaking your phone, you could use broken glass. And so, this is also like nice thinking about all of this glass. This glass I know was from Dead Horse Bay, which is from where this old dump was that was sealed off, I think 100 or more than 100 years ago. So all of this glass was like, I don't know, it was like bottles from like, who knows, like early 1900s, 1800s. And it's like taking this like kind of like lost history and then kind of like molding it back together. And then break, and so some of them will break. So someone bought one, and then my friends mailed it to them, and then they were like, 3 of them broke. And so I was like, okay, mail it back. And then they mailed it back to me, and then remelted it and remade it. So this can be, sorry, lost my voice. These are like this constant, like forever piece that can keep going forever and grow, like fall apart, go back together. All right, here's the story. Oh no, it's out of order. Oh, here we go. I usually tell the story first, but because I'm doing this thing, everything's complicated. Before I was doing the sea glass pieces, I needed to find some more glass, so I went online and I looked up different beaches on Long Island that are known to have sea glass, and I randomly clicked on one of them, and I found this. And I was like, oh my God, because that was me. This is true. So it was this weird, obviously this person who made this website used the image of me from Wikipedia to illustrate their website. So it was this weird collision between this kind of like these digital projects and this very material project that has like nothing to do with the internet, or maybe it has everything to do with the internet. And then they just like collided here. It was also like a few days before the opening, and I was like, I didn't have time to like contemplate this. I was like, oh, I'll deal with this later. Well, yeah, this was actually not from California. This was from a beach in New York that I did on this other thing. That's my mom, which we'll get to. That's my baby. This is a pagan ritual. Wisteria seeds and baby. I was going to talk. I mean, there's so many things to talk about, but I don't have any time. What time is it now? How long should I?
Keep talking.
No, I will. Don't worry. I think we're nearing the end. A distance between two moments in time. This is one of the editions. I was given a mail art workshop at MoMA, and I made this stamp, and then all the participants were stamping this and mailing them to random people. But I thought this was a good thing to think about with these next two works. This is my mom. Inside her glasses, you see her hands and her camera and her phone, which she had scotch taped. This is in California, to like the pole, and then also the ribbon. So in case the scotch tape breaks, the ribbon catches the phone. And so I asked my mom to make me a video of the sunset in California on this one day. I think it was February in 2011 or 10, 12, I don't know. And so she did that. And on this exact same day, when she was making a video of the sunset, I went to the Maldives so I could walk on the beach, which is way down in the Indian Ocean. I think that's the Indian Ocean. Is that the Indian Ocean? Yeah. Yeah. And because in the Maldives, so on the same day where the sun is setting in Los Angeles, in California, at that same moment in time, in the Maldives, you could see it rising. So this was the phone I had shooting a video of the sunrise. The same moment my mom was shooting a video of the sunset. And then it's called The Distance of a Day. This is how it looked in the gallery. This was at Basel, Art Basel, which I think is happening right now. It's called Statements. And so like you go in, like you see everyone's like it's a crazy booth, and then you come in here and it's like, what is this? There's nothing in here. There's two people looking at it. And so when it was originally shown, it was shown on the same phones that shot it. So these same phones that recorded the sunrise or the sunset, also are displaying it. You could also think about the phone. I mean, not even the phone. It's like what do you call it? The device is like this like contraption that orients yourself in space and time, both with like a clock, but also like the schedule. So all these ideas of time and space and distance are like at play here. And so I thought like the distance between two moments in time, I didn't write that in relation to this, but I thought it fit. And so it's like thinking, the idea of the title for The Distance of a Day was this idea of the day, and thinking about traditionally the idea of the day, like a day would start and end at sunrise and sunset when like the world becomes illuminated, and then you can go to work, you could like tend to your things. And so this is like this kind of like that distance between like California and the Maldives, but also the idea of the phone, how like the time of the phone, like traditionally when you thought about time, you would think about where the sun was in the sky, like the position of like whatever like sign you were in, and like maybe like what moon phase you were in. So there's this idea, there's a very physical and celestial like thing going on, but like with the phone, you're kind of like time is now just like this constant like 24/7 just like ticking thing. So it's like this I'm trying to show this kind of maybe a kind of contradiction where it's like here's like this former like a kind of sundial image on like a phone device. Let's see what's next. Oh, I know what's next. So this years later. I need to go. Oh, side note. This wasn't my idea. The distance. So the addition of the distance between two moments in time became the length that was in between each addition in the exhibition. Because we needed, so it's like an equal distance, but it was also it's the distance between two moments in time. One's March, one's April. There's all these like kind of like playful jokes that I do that aren't visible. All of the heights of the wires are different people who are working in the installation. So that's why they're not straight. Okay, back to here. So this idea actually, I made an app recently. And I realized it came out of this piece. So there's this thing that happens in this piece where when the piece was made in that moment, my mom was somewhere and I was somewhere, and then when it's shown, the phones come together when they were on like opposite sides of the world. And so then I thought I really like this idea of like these very generic consumer items and how it's like now they're like close to each other, and like at one point they were like really far away. So I made this app that was for this exhibition in Germany. I think I only have 2 images. And the app basically, you need an iPhone. It's free. Maybe there's an Android version coming if I can get some money to pay the developer. Basically what happens is you download this and onto your phone. Actually, let me try to show this. Let's see if this actually works. I know why I had this. This is really disorienting. So when you download the app, this is all that happens. And then if your friend or lover or enemy or whoever is next to you in physical space downloads the app, too, it will locate you. The app will realize that you're both next to each other, and it will connect. Does anyone have this? Oh, let's connect. Or are you already connected to someone? Oh, you connect. You have to disconnect. We don't have. 10 clicks? Yeah, 10 clicks to disconnect. So basically, this is the arrow is spinning. It's like you're in a state of disorientation. And what happens is when 2 people have it open, the arrow disappears, and you're like in connected mode. All right, I'm going to turn off this. And once you're in connected mode, there's no arrow. But once you stay in connected mode and you leave each other after I think at 0.01, oh, we're connected. Are we? Oh no, now it's 0, right? No, it's still. It has to do with like this service, because mine now says 0. So it says it should look like this, does it not? It will. It's hard to make an app. I didn't make it. So you're at 0 means like you're like kind of in the same space, and then once you leave, the distance will turn on. It tells you how far the other phone is, and it will point to them. And for me, it's like this idea of like thinking about like the digital and like the internet and like the interface, but also thinking about physical space. And so this idea of the compass as like this thing that orients us in actual physical reality and will point let's say your friend is in Berlin or in like New York, it will like point to where they are. So this idea of like thinking about where someone else is, like not to think about them in terms of like being like a dot on a map on a phone or being like in this like weird internet space, but actual think in like kind of physical, like tangible reality. And it's also this idea, like similar to the idea of the bells, and I was like trying to like de-standardize, and this is like kind of like, I wouldn't say de-standardize, but like it's kind of like it's like breaking away from the cardinal points and thinking about orientation not through like magnetic north, but through like other people. And so that's like a form of like spatial orientation. And then if you want to disconnect, wait, what does yours say now? Is it should say 0 at some point. Do you have an old phone? Yeah, it says 0. Okay, good. We have to, if it doesn't work, let me know. So I think that makes sense that like that idea maybe 2 years later came from this idea of thinking about things together and then far away. If anyone wants it, it's free. Oh my God, depression. And then when you get disconnected, you know what happens? You get depressed. So on the left is a studio rent edition for that month of, I don't remember when, last year. It was my book launch. That's why it has balloons. It was an actual launch. I launched my book with balloons. It was really expensive. So this is an artist book called Mood Disorder. Mood Disorder is similar to the public access projects. It was an image of me using the research from the Sad Depressed People book that I talked about 10 minutes ago, and kind of trying to make this kind of like stock image of like this generic image of like what like represents depression. And so that's me, also at the beach. It's kind of getting annoying. And it's like a gray day. The waves are crashing. Like I'm like heads in my hands. So I put this onto Mood Disorder, and like the public access, how those images kind of circulated off. This one kind of like spiraled out of control. Postpartum dad depression. Social isolation disrupts brain's white matters formation, key to brain plus blah, 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 blah. Mood swings on wings. Depression can be cured. What if I never get better? How to survive a job you hate. But it's also nice, so the image is originally in color. This person cropped and they made it black and white, so it goes through like another filter. So this book, the Mood Disorder book, is just all of these images. There's like 200 of them. No, there's 100 of them. I don't know. There's like 100 of them. And so the book is just a flip through. And then if you like Google reverse image, that's how I found all of these. So I just did a reverse image search on Google and then like found all these websites. So there's more. What I really want to do is I want to find one in print. Because that's like, it's like, oh, here's my image in print. That's weird. Kind of like how I like randomly stumbled across the sea glass one. What is this? Is this Spanish, Italian? Atípica? Is it Thai? Or new information about body stress response. So this is great. So this is Wikipedia in a sense as like a database for stock images, and now this image went into another database for stock images. So then it could recirculate from here. So this artist book was in the new photography exhibition at MoMA, and I managed to convince MoMA so basically the installation was like, it was all of the spreads were open, and I think there's 74 pages, so that's 37 books were on the wall in a really nice display. And on the very last day of the exhibition, the last like 10 minutes before the museum closed on a Sunday, I like signed my, I like terminated my loan agreement. Like I signed the paper saying that my work had been returned to me. So technically at that moment, my work was back in my possession, but it was still on the walls of MoMA. And then I slowly took down each of the books and I gave them to like audience who were standing there. So it was this kind of performance that was like kind of acting out these kind of like ideas of like distribution or like dissemination. And so if you happen to be there, then you would get this book. My friend showed up with his guitar. I let him play as I did it. The guard wasn't notified and he almost tackled us. And then the curator came in and was like, oh, your like supervisor was supposed to tell you. Like, you're supposed to get an email. And I was like, that guy was like writing at me. He was like, get out. And I was like, no, I'm the artist. He's like, you are not the artist. Here's another. So, and also I kind of, I wouldn't say lazy, but I sometimes say this is kind of a lazy artwork because I made the image and I put it on Wikipedia and like, that's it. Like, I don't like promote it. I don't like say like, oh, can you use my image on your website? I just kind of like let it like naturally grow. Kind of like the seed sower that I brought up earlier. So this just happened on its own. And maybe like maybe I did one, I think I put one on the page for loneliness, but like that didn't take off. That one just was removed. So there's like a lot of like seeds that like grew for a little bit and then maybe died. Oh, this is great. To live in silence is to die with regret. All right, I think we're coming close. This might be the end. How much time is there? Or I have a clock. You're good. 8 o'clock. I mean, because I could like talk 2 more hours, 3 more hours. I mean, I started making. It's also interesting because you could go through them, and like at one point I started making watercolors. Just like I got like bored with like conceptual art. Like, I'm gonna make watercolors in my hotel rooms now. So this was a Nobody Owns the Beach. Was stamped onto 2 envelopes, and they were mailed separately. So then when you get them, you put them together. And this came from a poster I made right here, and it was made. I made this when my public access project was shown some years before. So I mean, so a lot of times I'll have like public access will be a piece, and it's like these images from Wikipedia, and then I'll do a show, and I want to make this poster. So these things kind of like add up, and then maybe like the next time I do a show, maybe I don't show it. So it's always like different things can like happen. And then I just wanted to show. I kind of want to just end it with these other posters. These I just made it in Yvon Lambert in Paris. It's a gallery bookshop, and I just made these new posters. These are screen printed, and those are some of the sea glass. And each poster is kind of like this idea of thinking about like thinking a different kind of time, not just like the time on like, oh, what time is it? It's 7:58, but like the time of like a clock that falls asleep. Like maybe a clock is its own like subject that wakes up and falls asleep, or maybe the clock is like wound by the wind, so it's like connected to like more natural rhythms. Like the clock that follows the shadow of cats is kind of random, but actually it's a really subtle reference to this Japanese way of, I think it was either ninjas or samurais. They had a way of telling the time by looking at the eyes of a cat. And by seeing how dilated the pupil was, they'd be like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. It's like time to assassinate the emperor. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's like part of like the lore. So that was, or like the clock is minutes, or the length of your breath. Thinking about like subjective, like biological time, or like the heartbeat as a second. So just thinking about like how to like destandardize, make personal, subjective, make your own time. I think. Oh yeah. Wait a minute. I think I was gonna end on. Oh yes. That was like 5 hours ago. Scanning the studio rent editions. And so this book was, as you may have seen. It's like the catalog for the show. There's an essay by Mack. This was at people probably know Publication Studio. It's like down the street. So they published this. It's for sale. I wanted to sell one on stage. So if anyone wants to do this, it's $40. It's expensive because it's all color. Do we take card? Yes, we do. All right, you got to come get it. All right, before we end, inside my Nobody Owns the Beach bag, there's this Rachel Carson quote. Oh, wait, let's go back. Nobody Owned the Beach poster turned into a Nobody Owns the Beach bag, which publication studio will bootleg soon. And then there's this quote in there, which relates to these ceramic cups that will be in the gallery on Friday at 9:30 a.m. for Yoga Nidra. It's sleep dream yoga. We're all going to lay down in the gallery and be guided through a yoga nidra session with tea, with Rachel Carson, fragmented quotes. It'll make sense on Friday. You should come. All right, that's it. Oh, wait, but then I think questions? All right. So this, I could also just keep going for like 6 hours. Lose my voice again. There's also more books if anyone wants to buy one. It's
How
three.
much is your rent? Your studio rent?
Well, going through all of them, they're all different.
Oh.
Because like the first, like I had a studio with my friend for like 6 months, and then I had a studio in my friend's basement. So the first one might have been like $300, and so then the studio would have been the addition would have been $30. At one point, then it would go up, and then at one point it went down because then I shared a studio with my friend in like this basement of an apartment. So it fluctuates. Now it's $1,000. It's a lot in LA. It's kind of funny because in New York I've only lived in 2 places, but I've had like 8 studios or more maybe.
First, thank you so much. That was amazing. Really appreciate you being here. And I was noticing that all of the pieces in the exhibition here are from one collector, with the exception of one. And so I was wondering, there are some personal notes in there from you to that collector. Do you write personal notes to each of the people that subscribe to one of the studio exhibitions, or is that reflective of a personal relationship, between you and that collector that grew over time?
I think each one, it's like just random. It could be. I think that the note was on Christmas. So I think I was just like, oh, Merry Christmas, or like Happy Holidays. And I think I might have done that for everyone. I don't know. But if I didn't know them, I probably wouldn't write something. But maybe if I knew them, I would. But it's also like, a lot of this is like so spontaneous. Like, I was like looking at this stuff, I was like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. Don't show this.
So you mentioned a bit about not being precious about what you make. It's clear that you encourage, theft of your images. Can you talk a bit more about the significance of that for you as an artist, where a lot of artists are more protective of what they make?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it really comes from. Maybe I'm like from California. I'm just easygoing. I don't know. Like I've never been like, because I have always had like oh, the objects are all like kind of ephemeral anyways. Like at some kind of like the sea glass. At some like in 1,000 years, it's not gonna exist, or maybe it will. So I've never been so attached to things, except the trees. Because it's a living thing. It's, you could die so easy. One New York winter and like all your trees will be dead. But yeah, I think it's just like being more like I don't know, fluid, or like with things, like thinking about art as like a practice and like activity, and less as like an ends in the object, but more as like a method maybe. I'm improvising. But like, yeah.
With the pictures from the public access, your figure in them makes me think about the role of a person trying to like make a sense of self in the internet age, and I just wonder if that is just my interpretation, or if inserting yourself into this shared public space and being a somebody, even if it's a neutral somebody, matters to you, or if it's something you think about.
I thought about 2 things. I thought one that was like the anonymous person, so it was not really myself, it was like that. It's like because there was like the first photograph of a person. Who is that? Is it Daguerre? I can't remember. It's someone getting their shoe shined. Is that who? Daguerre. Okay. And it's like because they're just standing still. Yeah. And it's like it's like there's like someone's like presence. It's like brief moment. It's happened to be captured, and it's like in the first photograph. And like who is it? So I was like thinking about this kind of like these like the space of the image of like where these like anonymous things occur. But also this idea of, which shows up a lot, this idea of distance, with like, and like, especially in the internet where like, you have this false idea that like space no longer exists, that there is no distance. It's, oh, you can just send an email to your friend in Berlin. You don't have to write like a letter that will take like 2 weeks. But there still actually is distant space. So like this idea of like looking out at the horizon as a way of like contemplating that loss of, this idea of distance. Does that make sense? That was really vague. Sorry. You'll get easier.
Thank you so much. Thanks, David. I'm the other co-chair, Laura Hughes. Thank you guys all for coming, and I wanted to let you know there's another 6 weeks of lectures, and Tanaz Farsi will be next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Thanks again.